Hey, welcome back, Terri Cole, to the podcast. What is up?
Hi. So excited to be back.
Yeah, super psyched to see you again. Coffee in hand. Me
Big
too.
ass.
What's up?
Size of my head.
I know, I like big mugs too. So, Terri, I'm just really grateful for your time. I want to dig into family dynamics in this episode. Something we've talked a little bit about on the podcast in general, but we've never really gone there. And it's one of the things that you and I love to talk about. We're going to be doing this family drama hotline coming up. We'll talk more about that. But I wanted to just kind of start high level about why family is so challenging for people.
Mm. Well, let's start with, these are the original people who populated your world, right? So it's all you knew as a kid. So family dynamics, especially in dysfunctional families, this creates a deep neural pathway, a deep indentation, if it's traumatic, if it's unfair, if you had a narcissistic parent, if you had abusive siblings, like there's a million scenarios. Even if you just had one kid who was favored, even if you just had parents who you could never please, all of these experiences, they don't have to be the extreme of abuse for them to actually negatively impact the quality of your internal experience and your external experience. So why family is because they're the original players in our game, right? They're the original players. And when you don't, as you know, there's that famous quote, we repeat what we do not resolve, that I did not make up, but I can't remember her name right now. So just you could look it up. That's a true story, right? Because we're trying to fix that. So anyway, why family? I feel like that's why.
Totally. And yeah, not only were they the original, template for us, but it was this chronic download for 18 years of how to do relationships.
Or more.
Right? Yeah, or 25 years or however long you stayed with your parents. And okay, so
right.
that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious about your own journey with your family. I know mine. I've talked to the listener here and some of my students that I had to cut off my mom for a while. There was a journey I had to make once I started going to therapy. Can you just give us a little window into your journey with your family, just as a way to
Sure.
get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, sure. My family was as dysfunctional as any other. Um, I was the youngest of four daughters. So, and I had a father who definitely could have used a son or four. So I was the last one born. I had kind of a whole trip about being born the wrong gender and definitely feeling compelled that I needed to prove something. So even though I was the youngest chronologically, I was definitely the oldest emotionally. So I was the first one to go to college, the only one with an advanced degree, the first one to go to Europe, many things. But the dynamic itself, there's actually the dysfunction in my family was about communication more than anything else.
Okay.
Where there was a lot of love. There was not abuse, really. There was addiction, though. So addiction really, really impacts what happens in your life. Having my father was a very high functioning alcoholic. He died actually a long time ago, 20 years ago. So he never missed a day of work. It's the most insidious of the alcoholic styles that you could have because it's very difficult to point a finger at someone who is so high functioning. He retired at 51 with lots of money. He never got a DUI, never missed work. But of course, it impacted us because he was very emotionally unavailable. Spent all his time, and not when he wasn't working. He was such a workaholic too. So thanks, Dad. I got that from him. So that, for me, when you think about, so what does that create? It creates a need to be seen. This my repetition in romantic relationships until I had a lot of therapy was either being with people who I was definitely going to eventually leave, right? It was being attracted to men who were unavailable. And I think we did talk about this on the last episode that I did with you about that. I thought I had figured it out because I'd had some therapy. So I was like, this is so great. Like, I'm not attracted to anyone who's like my father at all. Like, all the men that I like are romantic and affectionate and verbal and fantastic. Oh, but they all live on another continent. Oh, look, they're geographically unavailable. Who knew? That's
Right.
basically the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Because how does that leave you? Longing, blah, blah, blah. So there was a lot to work out within my family system around the roles. I became very resentful in my 20s of being the designated oldest child when yes, I'm actually not the oldest child. And so that took a lot of course correcting on my part. And when I find that when I'm with my family, when I'm with my sisters and my mom, although we're very close, it's like if we're together, I feel like, what do they say? Being with family is like fish, 3 days and then no more, or
Uh-huh.
4 days is probably it. But I find that I overfunction a lot, or I'm wanting to control everything that's happening. But because my family has gotten so much healthier over the past, 2 decades, let's say, everyone who needs to be in recovery is in recovery. It's
Hmm.
much less activating than it was 20 years ago when I was the only person
Yeah.
in recovery. So we're imagining holidays where everyone is drinking to excess. I can't, I'm perfectly sober. So now it's a bunch of shit that they're not going to remember, but I can't forget,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of people listening can be in that situation as well.
Oh,
So I don't
totally.
know, was that too much? Not enough?
No, that's great. That's helpful just to hear a little bit about your journey, and it gives people, I think, a window into reflecting on their own, the holidays coming up or family vacation or whatever's coming up for you, the listener.
Yeah.
There's probably some kind of family dynamic that is frustrating, and we just want to try to help you with that. So we're asking you to sort of get in touch with your own family challenge, let's say, and we're going to try to offer you at least one tool here or a tip to help you get through it. And what do you see, just from your experience as a therapist for as long as you've been and all the courses you teach, what are some of the most common
Mm.
family dynamics that you see and that people get really challenged by?
So much of it has to do with bad boundaries.
Hmm.
So you may have good boundaries in your life outside of your family of origin, and then somehow it's like being in a time machine. You go back home and suddenly you're like 15 and your like bossy sister is like making you crazy and telling you what to do. And
Yeah.
so the boundaries and the language, I find that what I see is that people don't have the language with their family of origin to speak truthfully.
Hmm.
If a very matriarchal system, let's say, so the mom is dominating and is expecting that all of the grown, this is an actual situation that one of my clients was in,
Yeah.
that all of the grown adults and their families will be at her and the husband's house, right? But she's definitely the boss. They will wake up there on Christmas morning. So my client's like, hey man, I've been doing this for like 8 years and I want to wake up at my own house with my children. Why does Santa only go to grandma's house? Like, I
Uh-huh.
don't want to play this game and be controlled by this very narcissistic, self centered woman. And so with her, we came up with a strategy for her to first talk to her husband about opting out, which he knew they both wanted to. And, you have to have a willingness to let the chips fall where they may. You can offer whatever. So we offered an alternate solution that the family would get together between Christmas and New Year's so that everyone who already has kids can have actual Christmas
Yeah.
in their own
At
home.
their place.
But
Yeah.
that's like a perfect example of something that just it's dysfunctional for grandma to still want to be the center of everyone's life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then people feel, I'm just imagining even a subtler version of this where the nice, sweet grandma is like, no, no, I really need you at my house. And there's these subtle, covert kind of guilt strategies to like get everybody there. And well, if you don't come, I'm going to feel really bad. And,
Yep.
it might kind of ruin my holidays. And so there's these like
Yep.
little threats. And so people, like adult children, keep subordinating to that and they won't stand up for themselves. So I really agree with what you're saying that like the boundary issue is like the adult child is not taking good care of themselves. So what do you recommend in that situation? What can they do?
Well, I had another situation with a client that we came up with something where she didn't want to. There was a whole family tradition, her husband's family tradition, again with a narcissistic mother in the center of it, where, and I guess it was some week in the summer where everybody went to this family's house that had like, it was on like a beach house that they had, but it was like had black mold in it. There was all of these reasons why she was like, and she has autoimmune disorder and is a cancer survivor. And she was like, wow, I've been doing it for so many years. I just can't. And she finally said to her husband, I am going to opt out of the July week. I will not make you choose. If you still want to go, that's okay. Like they
Mm-hmm.
had to have the agreement where she was like, this is unhealthy.
Yeah.
If you don't want to go, but you make yourself go, that's your call. I don't want to go. And now it's in negatively impacting my health. And I'm no longer willing to make myself go.
Yeah.
And you know what? The mother-in-law, of course, was actually happy, right? Why would she be happy? Oh, she gets her son all to herself. So she's
Mm-hmm.
like, bye, I hope you feel better. Don't care.
Yep.
The husband was more understanding, but with Christmas itself, part of a lot of what I teach around this time of year in boundaries is that you really have to question the status quo.
Yeah. You do.
Do an inventory of like what has sucked for years. What is a toxic situation that you somehow maybe you feel nostalgic about it, maybe you feel like you need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to look at things from your grown-up self and go, do you really need to do that? What is the cost to do that? And if you were honest with yourself, what are the things that you do that add value to your life, that bring you joy? Or that your kids really want to do. Listen, there's lots of reasons, or that your mom really wants you to do. If you have a good relation, I have a good relationship with my mother. She really likes it if Vic and I go and sleep at her house on Christmas Eve. And I'm not with my grown kids and grandkids over the Christmas holiday because I'm normal. And I expect that their families are now their first families.
Mm-hmm.
We will get together in between Christmas and New Year's, but it makes my mother super happy.
Yeah.
If Vic and I will go to her candlelight service at her Methodist church with her the night before. Sleep in these super uncomfortable twin beds. It's super great. But you know what? That's a choice. She's 81. She's not going to be alive forever. And
Right.
if it's going to make her happy, I'm willing to do it.
Totally.
And she wouldn't be mad if I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Which is probably why I'm willing to do it.
you had a journey to get there, right? You took good care of
Oh,
yourself and had to finally stand up for yourself, and there might have been some friction, and finally you've rested
yes,
into kind of what sounds like a win-win now.
absolutely. But don't, yeah, I think it's important not to make it be like, and it was like that since I was 26,
Yeah.
because it was not. And
Right.
maybe it was like that since I was 46. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, it does take time.
Totally. I mean, I another way to look at this is differentiation, right? Is trying to differentiate yourself from the family system, and that really
Mhm.
does require boundaries and saying no. And for the listener, like if you're resentful about someone in your family, that's probably a sign that you haven't set a boundary with that person. You keep
Yeah.
allowing them to sort of control you and tell you what to do. And again, you have to look at, I think you're an adult here. I think you have the power to choose, even though it's, probably pretty unconscious to just go along. What's another way people can kind of wake up to some of these deep-seated patterns of betraying themselves over the holidays or vacations?
I think that part of it is there's a really, really interesting thing that I've been reading about and teaching about power dynamics, and that with my audience is probably 80% women
Mm-hmm.
who were definitely taught, and men are too, but to be good girls, right? We're taught to be
Yeah.
kind, to not be rude, to if someone asks you a question, to answer the question, right? No
Yep.
matter how rude the question is. So a lot of what I teach is about how to not answer the question, and that there's some very standard, sort of easy replies that if you see people at Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, at a certain time of year, or on a family vacation or a family reunion, people you don't see all the time, right? I have sort of temporary strategies of how to deal with them so that you're not giving up information about yourself to someone who's asking a crazy, rude, or intrusive question like,
Mm-hmm.
so why aren't you married? Right.
Right.
So, you can either punch, Aunt Bertha in the face. I wouldn't suggest doing that because that will really probably ruin the vibe
Yeah.
right there.
Changes the
Or
vibe.
you can ask one strategy, and this is from a woman named Tasha Urbaniak, who is an expert on power dynamics, is to question the questioner's question.
Mm.
So it's like, wait, Aunt Bertha, you're actually asking me right now why I'm married? Are you doing that right now at grandma's holiday party? Is that what's happening? Oh, Aunt Bertha, right? Don't answer the question.
Yeah.
You can also use humor, but just mirroring the question back or echoing the question, they call it, is something that if someone really asks a morbid curiosity question, like, oh, how did your niece die?
Hmm.
Then you say, wow, why would you need to know that?
Yeah. Are you
Why
really
would you
asking
ask
me
me that?
that right now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because that when you flip it back from a power dynamic point of view, you actually are taking your power back by putting the attention back on the other person.
Hmm.
And instead of feeling like inside, like, why did they ask me that? That is so rude. Prepare yourself to not answer any questions you're not comfortable answering.
Yeah.
You don't need to justify squat to people. And I think that, especially as quote unquote good girls or good boys, we feel like it's rude not to answer the question. And
Hmm.
only later do we go, how rude was that question?
Yeah, and I can't
And
believe
we're
I
not,
answered
you
it,
know,
and I don't even feel safe with this person, and I fucking disclosed the answer, you know? Yeah,
yes.
I like this power dynamic thing because another word I've heard for this, another term is frame control. Like you're taking
Mm.
control of the frame rather than someone kind of grilling
Oh,
you about your life. It's you're taking the frame back and saying, actually,
yeah.
why are you asking me that question? What are you wanting to know here?
Yes.
And
I
that
think
also buys you
humor,
time, right? To like trying to like figure yourself out. Like, oh shit, what am I going to do now?
exactly. I think the humor too, I have to say, listen, this is a personality thing as well. I use humor a lot
Yeah.
to deflect, to not answer. But if someone says, so how much money are you making now? You answer, oh, trust me, not nearly enough for all I do at that place, right? You're not going to answer. But you're also
Hmm.
not going to punch Uncle Frank in the face, even though
Yeah.
maybe you want to.
Right.
Why aren't you married yet? People are saying, when are you going to get married? Another response that I read online, I didn't make it up, but I thought it was funny, was the moment you have a baby, right? Someone who's married doesn't have kids.
Yeah.
So another response was, why should I get married when sleeping with my friends' husbands is so much fun? All right, you
Nice.
guys, obviously, I don't think you're actually going to say that, but I thought that
Yeah.
was funny.
Yeah.
Or
Totally.
when the divorce rate goes below 54%, or, you know,
Yeah.
there's sort of one other funny one that nobody will ever use, but I still thought it was funny is wait, Aunt Betty, you didn't get your invitation?
Yeah.
When they say, are you getting married?
Nice. Yeah. I mean, another one could be like, why, like, do you believe in marriage? How long have you been married? And you just, again, you're just putting the,
Oh,
you know, attention back
yes.
on them. But I
Yeah.
really like the humor and also, again, taking back control of your own space. You don't owe anybody an answer. And that requires,
You
I got
don't.
to look at my good boy, good girl kind of pattern in the face there and be like, okay, I need to be willing to upset someone possibly, right?
Yeah. And the body language too, Jason, part of um, some of the stuff that I teach in one of my boundary courses is I've got this thing that's called the Hello Goodbye Speed course. That's a part of the thing.
Hmm.
Like when you know either someone is a drunk, you know that Uncle Frank gets weird when he drinks too much and then he's all like trying to kiss you and maul you, whatever. You use body language that's like, tell your story, walking pal. Just keep
Hmm.
on moving and be like, hey, good to see you, Uncle Frank. I'm gonna go get some food. Bye. Like Uncle Frank, especially if he's a drunk, isn't gonna remember shit.
Yeah. Now,
Don't waste your politeness on Uncle Frank.
totally. Brings up an important question for me that I get asked sometimes. Curious what you think, which is now, okay, let's say I've been to therapy now. I've been working on myself. I've been getting some coaching. I'm reading some books. I'm listening to this podcast. And now I have some tools. My communication tools are better. Do I need to like have intelligent conversations with every single person and try to do reflective listening or can I give myself permission to kind of be a bitch or an asshole and just exit conversations sort of like you just did
Yep.
there?
My thing is, I would reframe it again and say, A, you give yourself permission to end any conversation that feels disrespectful, intrusive, or that you simply don't want to have.
Hmm.
They don't even have to be bad. align yourself with the people at holiday gatherings that are interesting, inspiring, that you like being with. You can make it real brief with Uncle Frank if he's always an idiot, or if he's politically very different, or if you know that he's like a racist, homophobic, anything that's going to provoke you. Don't ever take the bait.
Yeah.
That, like, one thing that I'd help someone come up with, because their family was very different politically, and it's such a hard political time in the States. And she had this uncle who was always like trying to goad her into this conversation, like saying really provocative and crazy things that were racist and sexist and all this crap. And she just would keep saying to him, hey, Uncle Frank, what's so interesting about that? There's absolutely nothing that you could say that would actually get me into this conversation with you. So you could either change the subject, or I'm going to grab some food. Like, nothing.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Not doing it.
Right.
Just you're saying to his face, but you're smiling.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into a fist fight with Uncle Frank. There's no need.
Yeah.
But my client actually used this tactic, and it worked beautifully. He was like, why, what? I'm only woo. And she was like, no. So do you want to talk about my vacation to Australia? Because I'm happy to say about that. And he was like, yeah. And it was fine. But he stopped because she didn't do the dance. She wouldn't get on the dance floor with him.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about, these are great. And Terri and I are going to be giving you guys some more tips, by the way, on this live family drama hotline, we're calling it, Tuesday, November 20th. Yeah. 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. So we'll announce that here in a minute again. And what do you think about taking a break from family relationships? Like people that are like, I'm not going home. I am done talking to those people. And they do sort of an emotional cutoff thing. Is that like, do you think that's an important step for some people to make? Like, do you have any tips or thoughts on that?
You mean like saying like I'm going on vacation instead of coming home for the holidays, like that?
Yeah, and actually being somewhat direct in that, you know what, I'm just kind of done with my family. I don't want to talk to them. I'm just going to stop returning their emails. Or just, continuing to avoid all these growth opportunities. That's one way to look at it. Another way is like, I'm just taking care of myself. I don't want to deal with my fucking family.
Yep.
Like, can you speak to either one of those? As like,
I
okay,
sure can.
boundaries or...
Well, here's the thing, but by being in their face about it, like, I'm not coming home as a punishment to you because you people suck. That is communicating something. It's just not communicating it very directly.
Yeah, totally.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But like that's a choice though. And you got to be aware that that's a choice. With a family that's super toxic, maybe that's the only way that you can deliver what it is you need to. And I have no judgment on that. I do think that if they're not super toxic, there's probably a better way of establishing your own dominance, like your own ability to be the boss of you. If you need to take a break from your family, you can simply decide to be on vacation. You really can.
Mm-hmm.
And in saying, it's not healthy for me to come home and fight and be with a bunch of people who are addicted or who are doing this or who are doing that. So I'm choosing not to. I love you guys from afar. I hope it's great. And I'm going to be on a beach and wherever. They may be like, F you, they may be mad, but there's a simple truth of just saying, like, no. I actually have a quick story about this that I think could be helpful. I have a friend who's married, and both of them are from families with narcissistic mothers who kind of want to dominate things. And, one they live in the same town of, one they live far away from. And they made this decision that when they got married, the first year that they were together, that they weren't seeing any family. So they were everyone's expectation. They were like, nope, this is our first year as being our own first family, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing only what we want. We'll see you guys after New Year's. And it was such an important boundary. Now, some people may be like, well, that's like extreme. You're in the same town. You're not doing it. I was like, brava, because you're basically saying, what's happening now? There's a new sheriff in town, and that's me. And when you have very controlling, especially mothers, because they can be such master manipulators, you're like, I'm totally willing to let the chips fall where they may. I'm being clear with you. My husband or my wife is now my top priority. And again, people may think that that's extreme, but I thought it was really smart. They've spent many holidays with them since. Everything is fine. But they got it. Both of those moms were like, oh, this could this could not happen at all. Like I could not see them at all,
Yeah.
especially once they started having children.
Oh yeah.
They, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's powerful. It just had me think of one more question. Maybe we'll take just one more question here, and then you can help me talk about this fun webinar we're doing.
right on.
So another one I hear about a lot, and just being a man, is men who talk to their mothers a lot to the point where their wife starts to feel boxed out.
Hmm.
The mother is the priority, and it's almost coming from a place of guilt, and the boy feels it's like this weird boy mother dynamic where the boy
Yep.
feels obligated to call mom every day, some
Yep.
adult men, or a couple times a week, and make agreements with mom that go
Yep.
against the values of wife and husband. It's just like,
Hmm.
holy shit, talk about a powerless dude. Can you speak to that
Hmm.
dynamic?
I sure can. It's actually a very common dynamic. And I think you'll also find in that dynamic with a mother who cannot let her children evolve, because when you're healthy, you definitely do not want to be the center of your grown son's world. I sure don't. I have 3 grown sons, and I want their wives and their children to be the most important people to them, no matter what.
Yeah.
And then the family of origin. Great.
Hmm.
Because Vic is the most important person to me, then everybody else. Like
Right.
I want that. This is how you do it. So what I was going to say is that I think that many times that you'll find when the son and mother have this type of I mean, I feel like I can flat out say inappropriate relationship, because it is,
Yeah.
in the way of it. We're talking about health, that also the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law will have a lot of shit between them because
Absolutely.
they're acting out the unresolved shit between mother and son.
Hmm.
So this is triangulation, like at its
Oh yeah,
finest,
totally.
right?
Yep.
So what do? Well, the wife has choices to make. You can draw boundaries. You can say to the husband, "This is a problem between us. Like, you need to draw a boundary. I need to know that you're on my side,
Hmm.
that you stand for me, that you stand for our relationship." Um, and some may be able to, and some may not. But it's definitely a problem. My husband Vic was married. His first wedding, his first marriage, his wife passed away. I inherited teenage sons. That's how I have so many grown children and grandchildren. And he shared with me a situation where, his mother was, German, from Germany, he's first generation. And his wife, Donna, who is the biological mom of all the sons, she was like healthy, and, she was like vegetarian, and she didn't want the kids having refined sugar and all these things. And every time his mother would watch the kids, she would give them all these things that his wife and in the family that they didn't do. And he actually drew a boundary and said to his mother, you're not watching the kids anymore. You can come here, but you have to respect Donna's wishes and my wishes. She's my wife. And it was like there was this pivoting in that moment. And as much as his mother resented the shit out of it, she got over it. And in the
Yeah.
end, she ended up having a good relationship with Donna before Donna passed away. But I tell that story because he had to choose. There
Yeah.
was, I mean, I guess he didn't, but he decided to.
Yeah, totally. And if you're the man in that situation, to the men, if you're listening, like it's to me, it's your responsibility to change that dynamic, man. It
Yeah.
is, I think, pretty unhealthy, and it's impacting your marriage negatively, most likely.
Yep.
And it's time you
Yep.
prioritize the marriage over prioritizing your relationship with your mother.
Absolutely. And it's okay to do it. It's like you've got to give yourself permission, because your mother isn't going to be here forever. And the damage that you're doing to your marriage might be.
Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly. The damage to your marriage. You got to look at that. The cost. Like, do you really want to keep
Yes.
taking care of your mom in that way, or having that weird dynamic with her at the expense of this amazing woman you married?
Hmm. The mother of your children.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So Terri, tell me about what are we doing with this webinar? Tell the listeners
It's so
here.
great. You guys, it's going to be so exciting. First of all, it's free. So let's start with right on for free support from 2 therapists during the holidays.
Oh yeah.
But what we're going to be doing, it's a live webinar, and we'll be taking some questions beforehand. You'll be able to send them in. We'll be taking some live right there on the call. We talked about the date. It is the 20th of November from Mountain time, 7 p.m., Eastern time, 9 p.m. I guess Pacific time, 5 p.m. And so you guys will be able to sign up. We'll both be sharing it on social media. We'll be sending you emails about it where you'll be able to click and sign up. You just click on the link and sign up to be present and get your questions answered so that you actually can experience some lightness, more joy this holiday season and not go into it feeling like, I mean, how many of you listening sometimes just go, yep, check it off the list. I survived, Uncle Mattie's party. Like,
Yeah.
we don't want to just be surviving. We actually want to thrive. And sometimes a little knowledge and a little bit of a shift within you can make all the difference from basically having it be a blur of, or drinking too much or whatever it is that you do to cope, for it to become something that's really vital and beautiful and enjoyable for you. And I think a lot of that has to do with knowing how to draw boundaries with ease and grace, getting some help with language, and having two professionals help you decode your crazy family dynamic, right?
Yeah, on the spot. So we're going to do that live. And we want your questions. We want you to show up. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you're going to learn a lot from other people calling in, saying, here's my family dynamic. How do I deal with it? And Terri and I are going to give you the laser download on a few things you can do differently. And I really agree with her here that, man, it doesn't have to be this thing you are contracted around where you have another glass of wine just to kind of get through it. You can enjoy yourself and you can feel confident knowing that you're the most mature person here. And
Right.
wow, look at the display of all these crazy people and I'm going to be okay. And you can actually enjoy it, So and I'm a perfect example, man. I went from loving my family dynamic to I started to wake up and peel back the onion. I was like, oh, I don't like my family dynamic at all. I don't want to be around it. To now really loving going home for the holidays and appreciating who my family, each one of them are, and having great connections. So it can be done. We're examples that people have worked through this, and we help people through this stuff all the time. So I really
Yes, we
think,
do.
yeah, I really think you guys are going to have fun with this and get a lot out of it. So make sure you go to relationshipschool.net/hotline. Okay, super easy to remember. Hotline, because it's like a hotline. It's like, okay, shit, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. How do I deal with these people? We're going to tell you, all right?
Yes, we are. I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're going to rock it out. Okay, Terri, where do people find you? Just, you've been on, oh, by the way, podcast. Make sure you go back and listen to podcast 156 with Terri. It was awesome. We went deep on boundaries. So if you want another quick take on boundaries, please listen to that episode. And where can people find you again?
You can find me at terricole.com. That's TERRICOLE.com. I also have a podcast, Hello Freedom, which you've been on, which you can find anywhere, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you just look for my name on any social media, you'll find me.
Killer. Okay, Terri, looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Me too. Thank you so much, Jayson. I really appreciate it.
You got it.